Welcome to episode 10, Tar Heel History. Today we're going to cook out some turpentine out of tree resin, out of pine tree bark. Okay, and basically how we're going to start with our steel here. Before we get started, I want to say thank you for watching, and if you will, subscribe to the channel. And here we go. This is our little homemade steel. Like you saw in the last episode, the big, huge steel, 7, 9, 11 barrel steels. Well, we needed a way to cook some off at our shows and not actually get into something that big. And so we designed this little teapot steel, which is nothing but a teapot that you can buy in any Walmart. And then we added our copper line, our cooling tank. And so what we're going to start by doing is putting about 1/3 of this into water. Okay, that gets our mixture going. And then we have our tree resin that came out of the longleaf pine, the pine we're farming here that we did in a couple episodes ago. Showed you how to cut the trees with the hacks. And then when you collect your resin, you want to put that resin into your little steel. That's how they did it. Dumped it in there, okay? This is resin, oleo resin, out of the heart of the tree. That runs out of those cuts we made in the tree, okay? Put it about 2/3 full. You don't want too much in there with the water and the resin. Then you're going to seal it up with your cap, just like these teapots you get at Walmart. Then what I've done with ours, because we've had the top blow off of them, explode off, so we put some Chevrolet front end shims and bolted them through here so to hold the lid on it. So we're going to cover it with a wet rag on the lid also when we start cooking it. But these shims help keep that cap from blowing off under high pressure, okay? This is something you don't want to play with if you don't know what you're doing, because you can get hurt. Because this stuff is flammable. And it has burned a lot of towns down in the history of our state. Now I use fat lighter tree heart because it's got the oleo resin in it, and it's a quick fire, and it's easy to get it hot fast and slow it down fast. Get my fire going, we built a little stand to set our pot on. It presses down in the ground on legs. Okay, we're going to set this steel right here with the end of that pipe coming out over that jar. We'll set still on the fire. Now, like I say, we take a wet cloth and lay over this lid to keep that damp. And our condenser down here, ice and water. Now they used river water, creek water, whatever was cooler, than the hot liquid. And you can hear it's already started ticking in there. you want to keep that condenser cold so it'll cool this pipe, and as that steam comes out, it'll turn it back into a liquid. Now you can see the steam is coming out, it's cooling in the condenser, and your turpentine and water mixture is running into the jar. Okay, you can see it's a time-consuming process, but what's coming out the end of this pipe is turpentine and water. Turpentine being the oil of the tree, it's an oil. It will separate, float to the top of the water and sit there, and you could drain the water off out and underneath the bottom of it, and it leaves pure spirit of turpentine. Now, it took 280 of pine tree boxes full of resin to fill up one 32-gallon barrel. It took about 6 or 7 barrels of resin to make 1 barrel of spirits, and so it's about 5 or 6 to 1 by the time it cooks off. So you were looking at, you know, about 5 to 1, 6 to 1. So take about 6 32-gallon barrels to make 1 32-gallon barrel of spirit. Now you can see in this jar, you see this turpentine floating on water. See how they've separated, oil and water will separate, and the oil will always float on top. So this on the top is a spirit of turpentine, this is water. If you had this in a barrel, you would drain it like we showed you in the last episode. The water would run out and underneath the spirit, leaving nothing but the oil of turpentine. And so now we have our resin that's been cooked and the turpentine out of it, and we're going to pour it out through this filter into our molds. This is rosin, and just remember, rosin comes out of the steel, resin out of the tree. Rosin out of the steel, resin out of the tree. Resin out of the tree, rosin out of the steel. Now, this is rosin. Rosin is what we poured out of the steel after we cooked off the turpentine. And we pour ours into a mold and see how it hardens up after it cools off. And we make little teddy bears out of ours because a lot of kids that are in symphony school in Wake County use our rosin on their fiddle strings, their bows. But this is rosin. This is what the resin turns into after it's cooked out of turpentine and cooled off. It's hard. And here's some antique rosin that came out of the Cape Fear River out of a rosin dump like we discussed in the last issue of last segment. This came out of the river. This is what we're making. Ours is a little different because this was out of a big batch. But you can see right here, rosin. And all your resin out of the tree boxes has trash in it and bugs in it and things like that. So after you cooked out your turpentine out of the steel, you dumped your rosin through a screen which would catch the trash and give you a clear product. Thank you for joining us on episode 1 through 10 of Tar Heel History. That's tar, pitch, and turpentine explained to you the best I know how to explain it. If you don't mind, get people to subscribe and watch this. These are survival skills. They can be used, for a lot of different reasons. All this tar, pitch, turpentine right on today is good for wounds and cuts, bruises, medicinally. People ask me, these steels, are they only for cooking turpentine? No, I mean, you can cook, if you put, corn mash in them, you know what you're going to get out the other side is alcohol, just like they used to do. But the steels were almost exactly the same, according to Olmsted's writings. And so we've done the very best we could and hope you understand it. And we thank you again. Subscribe if you will, and hit that little button up there or whatever that causes it to ding when we put one out.